This project proposes the Scots pine as the building material of the future. The Scots pine is the world's most distributed pine tree, and at present the EU cuts 600 million of them down each year. The forestry industry described 35% of the tree as forestry waste, which is later burnt. How can we use this material in a more efficient way so that the largest and most intelligent biomass carbon store can be both beneficial for the built environment and the natural world? The initial research looked at the whole Scots pine tree as a singular item, then separated it into elements: the needles, branches, bark, resin, timber, roots, and earth. The research then took two approaches that were representational and allowed me to discover methods of working with the materials. The first approach is the architectural. It takes the components and reimagines a future use by forgetting about the previous applications made by the tree. The work represents the disconnection the built environment has with the forest. How disconnected can something become whilst being purely from a singular source? What materiality will it then uncover? And how do we work with the components? During my research, I found three key dates that correlate human population with the forest: 1492, 1950 and 2050. Each of these dates focus around tipping points. 1492 was the year Europeans landed on the Americas. Within 100 years, disease, famine and slavery had turned a population of 50 million to 6 million, allowing an area double the size of the UK to regrow back into forest, causing a 10 parts per million drop in CO2 levels. 1950 was the largest population increase the planet had ever seen, combined with an economic boom that put stresses on the environment, causing a rapid increase of 100 parts per million of CO2 to present day. 2050 is the date set as the last resort for human change, where we have to find balance in human life and the environment. Slightly more than 1/3 of the annual German timber harvest would theoretically suffice to construct all new buildings in Germany that year out of timber. The proposition that Scots pine is the building material of the future becomes a reality. What form would a 100% Scots pine building take? How does it care for more than just the inhabitants of the building, but the life within the forest? The second approach is the traditional, the use of a singular material carved intricately to slot together without glues, and in the case of Shinto temples, allows the building to be dismantled, upgraded and rebuilt. How can we use traditional techniques in combination with modern technologies? The films combined represent both modern and old, and focus around the techniques of spinning. They have a strong symbiosis between the three elements: earth, tree, and body. The rapid increase in human development left pockets of undefined landscapes unaltered by humans directly. Pet level has existed in a constant state of flux. The land the beach occupies was home to a forest that connected the UK with France in a time when sea levels were 30 metres lower. At present, the trees are submerged by seawater that prevents the timber rotting and has preserved the forest for more than 5,000 years. The cliffs erode by 1 metre a year, revealing dinosaur footprints set in stone and Neanderthal caves embedded in the cliff face. Pet Level presents itself as the perfect site to reimagine change in a non-destructive way, becoming a stage to experience the future left by rising sea levels and the destruction of forests, whilst the seaside, being a traditional place for experimentation and technological advancement, can be used as the bed for the new designs. I propose a theatre that takes the role of the modern Victorian pier, that instead of creating a space to be disconnected from the reality of nature, this building pushes the viewer closer to it, acting as a viewpoint back towards the beach. The building has 4 key design areas that require different uses: the colonnade, foyer, corridor and auditorium. The collages were produced to give materiality and texture to the conceptual spaces. The colonnade acts as a walkway that tightly encapsulates the person as the waves below make the platform sway. Its singular path and one-sided view allows the visitor to focus on their journey out to sea, detaching themselves away from human society to re-engage with the rawness of nature. As you enter through the outer skin of the foyer, you spiral into a room where the body meets the earth floor and delicate timber fins spiral overhead into a hole in the floor that invites the rush of sound and air from the sea below. The building's aesthetic is disconnected from the forest, but uses the light from the reflection off the sea to act like the branches in a windy forest, who allow the light to dance along the floor, and the moist, cleansing sea air to give a similar breathing quality of that in the pine forest. As you continue upstairs, you enter into a long dark corridor that confines you as you travel past dimly lit fins towards a translucent paper wall. The auditorium then opens up, whilst focusing your attention towards the cliff face beach. Like a valley in the forest, you move down and through to find a space on the banked seating. Moving onwards from this, I want to develop these spaces into a 3D model, using that as my primary approach of development, and finally making a film of this that encapsulates the aesthetic of the original experiments.